Abdullahi Boru Halakhe joins us now. He's an African policy and security analyst, and we're going to discuss with him Desmond Tutu's legacy, really a defining role in apartheid and post-apartheid South Africa. I mean, you can't really mention the country's current history without talking about people like Nelson Mandela and, of course, Archbishop Tutu. He played a defining role in truth and reconciliation, but the country isn't quite the rainbow nation he believed it could live up to be.
Indeed. You know, even great men have their failings, and I think until the end of his time, I think if there is one thing that he feels, and it's not on him individually, but that he didn't push the needle enough, I think it's the Truth Commission that he led. And I think one of the things that is missed sometimes is the fact that, you know, for him, it wasn't just about victims and perpetrators coming and saying, I am sorry. It also meant that there had to be a reparation of some sort. That never happened. And I think for many South Africans, and also because, let's be honest, the expectation was astronomically high. So I think that would be one thing that I think the future generations of South Africans will have to struggle with. But let's not forget, though, I mean, like the legacy, just even if we just, narrow it and carve it out just for the Truth Commission, it inspired other truth commissions elsewhere, and many still refer to, in many post-conflict situations on the continent, to follow that path, although very few have succeeded to the extent that they did. That is not to say that the Truth Commission was an excellent success.
Yeah, talk if you can about his impact on the rest of the African continent.
I think there are not many Africans that didn't know him. And there are not many Africans who drew inspiration from him. I think sometimes it is easy to forget when figures like him, figures like Mandela are Disneyfied, and then we just pick quotes and post on our social media or on our t-shirts, and they are seen as rock stars. But these are people who genuinely inspired a generation. It's very easy, again, to forget, you know, what they have to endure in order for them to keep the kind of, you know, spirit. I mean, like for him, sure, he wasn't detained like Mandela's and the rest, but to be facing the apartheid regime and still retaining their humanity intact, saying, sometimes he used to say, if anybody comes to me, I cannot, if they ask for forgiveness, fail to forgive. I think that is very impactful, and sometimes it's easy to forget. But his generation, Mandela's generation, are no longer there. And I think it's up to the current generation to produce their next Mandelas and their next Tutus.
Here in the U.S., Tutu has been compared to Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend there, religiously and unabashedly progressive. Popular conservative clerics in America saw Tutu as a bit of a radical, and they seem to be a leading voice, if you will, in religious America. Talk about that portfolio that people like him have in this discussion.
It is, again, you know, I mean, religion is not an easy topic, but I think for people like him and people like MLK, to them, the idea of love has to be radical. The idea of justice has to be radical. I mean, Tutu was on record saying, please show me in the Bible where apartheid has been mentioned or accepted, and I am ready and willing to tear this Bible into pieces. I think the fact that he came from, you know, such a well-grounded as a teacher initially, and then, you know, as somebody who's gone to theology school to learn, that was the moral fountain from which he drew, and similar to Martin Luther King. One thing that I want to mention again, though, talking about them being placed on these pedestals, they also were very trenchant in their politics. Both Martin Luther King as well as Archbishop Tutu had very strong words for, you know, the capitalism, where they said, look, this is not necessarily Christian, this is not necessarily godly when we have this level of segregation, lack of, you know, people being facing injustice.